It sounds like the most childish, immature type of movie to cover. It's a Disney Channel original movie. But let me tell you, this movie shocked me. Welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So today I want to talk about a new Disney Plus teen movie called Prom Pact. I want to start with my usual question, and that is it worth watching? If you were a fan of Disney Channel original movies, DCOMs for short, ever in your life, I definitely recommend watching Prom Pact. When I saw all the promos, I saw, a lot of pink and typical Disney high school stuff. I saw a lot of basketball imagery, so I was like, oh, here we go. Disney's trying to recreate High School Musical for the current generation. But then pretty early on in the movie, I heard them say words like sex and keg stands. I literally had to do a double take and be like, did they just say sex? Did they just say keg stands? Prom Pact looked so innocent in the beginning, and then it went sex, drugs, and rock and roll real quick. And by rock and roll, I mean they sing along to Imagine Dragons. But please don't hold that against this movie. It had some odd choices in it, but all in all, it was a pretty decent teen movie. It is also like theatrical quality. It's hard to convey my shock with how much of a departure it is for a DCOM. So I recommend Prom Pact, and I want to talk to y'all more about it because I'm just gagged at everything that happened. This seems to be a relaunch for the Disney Channel. It actually premiered on the Disney Channel and then it went to Disney Plus the following day. That's the craziest thing to me, that like it's not just like a Disney Plus streaming thing. Like it is meant to premiere on the Disney Channel on cable TV. It was apparently directed by Anya Adams, who has directed a lot of episodes of TV, including Blackish, Glow, The Good Place, Yellow Jackets, A League of Their Own. These are all very critically acclaimed shows. And then also it was written by Anthony Lombardo, who wrote for Modern Family. It's actually the first DCOM to earn a TV-14 rating. As far as the cast goes, there were a lot of new faces for me. A lot of them seem to have come out of Disney and children's media. For example, the main character is played by Peyton Elizabeth Lee, who was Andy Mack in the Andy Mack show on Disney. As I was watching, I love to see like who's a Nepo baby here, because there's gotta be some. 2/3 into the movie, I was like, oh my god, I know who the Nepo baby is. This is the Nepo baby alert. The main guy, I was like, he must be David Schwimmer's son. 2/3 into the movie, I just heard his voice and I was like, that's Ross.
It would just be like one classmate helping out a fellow classmate, nothing more than that. And you know what? We don't even need to sit next to each other if you don't want to.
And he had the same like voice tone and then like the same like intonation, like kind of whiny. And then I looked at his face and like his eyes looked like David Schwimmer, and like his eyebrows and like his face shape kind of like a long face. And of course I look into it and it's some guy named Milo Manheim from the Zombies cinematic universe on Disney. I'm still convinced like his mom has some explaining to do. The resemblance was uncanny to me. But I guess I must retract my Nepo baby alert. False alarm. False alarm, okay. Let's go ahead and recap and discuss the movie Prom Pact. It just sounds so cheesy and like it's gonna be fluff for toddlers, but it wasn't. So our main character is Mandy Yang, and she is a high school senior who is obsessed with getting into Harvard. Especially, she doesn't care about high school events or dances or anything to do with high school. She is very like openly liberal, kind of a social justice warrior type, and wears like a lot of the catchphrase t-shirts like future is female or save the bees. So Mandy's best friend is Ben Plunkett, who is just kind of like a nerdy guy, but he is known as No Nuts Plunkett by the rest of the school because he had a peanut allergy incident when they were kids. They're talking about nuts in Disney? That's what I'm talking about. It's crazy. Unlike most teen movies, the best friend relationship, despite being two heterosexual boy and girl. They do have a platonic friendship. My favorite other teen movie where this happens is The Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff. Ben is more desiring to be part of high school events. He just hangs out with Mandy every weekend and they have their tradition. They go to the bookstore, the movies, and they don't participate in high school stuff. They actually call all the other kids in high school Everests because they are peaking in high school. This is kind of like a pick-me energy that is relatable. I think one of my favorite teen movies is Booksmart, where they kind of turn that on its head and the main characters are so nerdy and think of everyone in their high school as stupid. And then once they're graduating, they find out everyone is going to good schools and everyone has ambitions, but they were also having fun in high school. So I think that's what they're getting at with Mandy's character. If you're in high school, enjoy it. Like, it's one of the last times you get to live your life without major responsibilities. I mean, unless someone has like a life circumstance that changes that, but for a lot of people, high school is kind of the last time you are taken care of by parents but still have a little independence. It's just not that serious. I remember being so stressed in high school about college, and it ended up being fine. I'll talk about my college later because it's relevant to the story. It is, I swear. So Mandy and Ben are always hanging out on the sidelines, and he's kind of tired of it, and he is kind of like, I want to go to prom. And so Mandy, to cheer him up, asks him to prom and says like, we'll go to prom together and it's fine. But platonically, of course. And Ben is happy about that. Mandy was being nice even though she thinks it's stupid. He's mostly interested in high school events because he has a crush on LaToya Reynolds, who is like the most popular girl in school. She's a cheerleader. And then another important character is Graham Lansing, the most popular boy in school, of course. Basketball player. He has a little Troy Bolton in him. He's also, of course, rich, and his father is a senator. Oh, and then Margaret Cho plays Miss Chen, who is the high school guidance counselor. She's mostly there for comic relief. At the beginning, when she's introduced, we see that she is openly queer and she has a wife. That's another new-ish direction for Disney, though they have already had quite a few gay characters here and there in their media, but this is the first time I've seen like a DCOM where it's acknowledged. Like, I'm from the days of you had to decipher Chad and Ryan's outfits in High School Musical 2 to maybe sort of imply they are gay. Things have really changed, and I'm really glad on that front. And they set up at the beginning that the prom theme of the year is gonna be 80s. It's cute because I feel like the 80s have become almost like the mythology of teen movies, the core lore of making a high school comedy movie. I think of Easy A as like a big example of like honoring the 80s. And the 80s become a backdrop throughout the movie because everyone is doing these promposals with different 80s themes. So if you're looking out for it, you can see all kinds of 80s movies references. Having this 80s theme did for a minute make me question if this was a period piece. I'm exaggerating calling it a period piece, but I just mean like set 10 years ago. The 80s were so in the early 2010s, and they're not in anymore, are they? But I mean, the 80s are important to teen movies, so I guess that's the tie-in. But also, like, are promposals still like a big thing in schools? I would love to hear about it if you have experience, because I feel like promposals started when I was in high school and they were like the new thing, and I figured they were just a trend that came and went. But I feel like it's still a thing. I mean, obviously it's exaggerated for the movie. I feel like the reason promposals became a thing was because social media became big, and like the point of the promposal is like shared on social media. Back in my day, it was also like the flash mob trend was big during the promposals trend, so like it all tied in. And then the biggest reason I thought that this was a period piece, there's a point where a character listens to One Direction in 2023. So I was like, is this all 2013? But I mean, at one point they play bad guy, which is newer. And also the main character is like a social justice type activist person, and that became way more mainstream post 2016. So my conclusion was that it is not a period piece, But it really had me wondering. Maybe the writer got his pop cultural references from a few years ago. So the movie gets going when Mandy gets waitlisted by Harvard. This was her big dream and she is devastated. So she goes crying to Miss Chen, and Miss Chen is like, maybe you could get a good letter of recommendation to help you get in. Maybe the senator, who is a Harvard alum, the father of the popular guy. I think from there you can see where this is going. Mandy hatches this plan, of course, to befriend Graham. She's not thinking of seducing him at this point, but become friends with Graham and through him meet his father and hopefully convince him to give her a letter of recommendation for Harvard. She figures out through her friends that Graham is failing psychology, so her plan is to tutor him for free in psychology. She plans to ask him at this big house party with alcohol and underage drinking. And because there's alcohol and underage drinking, she's not able to have a proper conversation with Graham and ends up not being able to ask him. So the next day he does a volunteer thing and she's like, wow, he does volunteering. He's so hot. She doesn't say that, but later. She talks to him at the volunteering and he agrees to be tutored by her. He is a little sus, like, what do you want in return? And she's like, nothing. So she's already starting off the relationship with a lie, typical for these plots in high school movies. So this is kind of like the setup of the movie. From the beginning, you see the tone of the movie and the explicit nature. At the beginning, they're criticizing 80s movies for being problematic. Again, evidence as to this being modern, not in 2013. They're saying a certain movie, I think it's Weird Science, I haven't seen that one, but Mandy says something like, oh, the whole time he's just trying to charm her into having sex with him. And I was like, did she just say the word sex? I think this was the first thing that I was like, oh, so this isn't High School Musical. And then it was all downhill from there. They talk about alcohol. They talk about keg stands at the party. They show the party that is rowdy. There's red Solo cups. Mandy walks in on a gay couple making out, hooking up. They talk about virginity. One kid says, and he's like a kid. I mean, I don't know if he's a kid. He might just be small. But he's teasing Ben, the nerdy guy. He tells him he's never put his P in a V. I was like, do I need to write a letter? Don't HBO my Disney. Don't Euphoria my High School Musicals. I'm just kidding. I'm living for this. I'm just salty that I didn't have this growing up. If High School Musical could have been talking about P's and V's, then that would have been so fun. At least they would have even more of a rewatch factor as adults now. This Prom Pact movie reminded me more of movies like John Tucker Must Die, 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That. It's the type of plot. It's like someone's trying to date someone with some ulterior motive. It's like a secret plan, and then obviously they're gonna fall in love, and then it's all the truth's gonna come out, and the person that got duped is gonna be upset. It feels very Shakespearean, honestly, and I was trying to investigate if it was based on Shakespeare, and I don't believe it's based on an exact Shakespeare play. But Julie Bowen, yeah, like the actress Julie Bowen, she was a producer on the show and she gave a quote that said, it goes back to Shakespeare. She's a little bit strident, very type A, and she doesn't want to believe, especially in heteronormative love, because she's so liberal. But then she falls and there's that undeniable chemistry. This is the sentiment of like Miss Independent by Kelly Clarkson, like, I'm so independent, but then I fell in love. Oh no. Once the movie gets going, Mandy is tutoring Graham and she finds success by tutoring him while playing basketball, and then he gets to teach her a little bit about basketball and how to shoot. He's the king of consent. He like asks, can I touch your arm? When he's teaching her basketball. It's a good thing to depict in media. And she starts kind of realizing that he has a heart of gold. He just doesn't wear it on a t-shirt like she does. He like teaches little kids basketball and he invites her to go with the little kids. Of course, she's the only girl he's ever brought to meet the kids. The children love him, which women in movies can never resist. Even the woke ones, I guess, like in this movie. I was starting to wonder, like, is this senator father of his like conservative? I wrote in my notes like, I bet they won't answer that. And of course they didn't answer that. Even though she's clearly liberal, it's kind of unclear where the senator and the popular guy fall on the political spectrum. I thought Graham Lansing was a little Republican coded. So while Mandy's spending all her time with Graham and tutoring him, trying to get her goal, Ben is just kind of hanging out on his own. He actually runs into LaToya Reynolds at the movies, and they had a previous interaction where like he was shocked she knew his name even though she was so popular, and it was kind of super refreshing to have like a humble, chill, popular girl that wasn't a bitch. And so Ben and LaToya end up having an impromptu date at the movies and have a good time. Eventually Graham's mother meets Mandy and she finds out that she's trying to get to Harvard, and she offers like, oh, my husband, the senator, can write you a letter. Why don't you come to this fundraiser thing with us? Graham sees potential in bringing Mandy to the fundraiser because her being a smart girl will impress his dad, who is never proud of him. He comes to pick her up for the fundraiser, and first of all, her dress, that would never be allowed back on my Disney Channel days. But good for her. She better work. This is a great look. Sorry to be so scandalized. I just feel like so old right now. When Graham picks her up, he finds out from her parents, who are like embarrassing and cringy, that Mandy is a directioner. Do directioners still exist? Y'all, please. Okay, I have a confession to make. Yeah, so I was a directioner 10 years ago when One Direction was, you know, kicking still. It was kind of like in Mandy's case where it was embarrassing and all my friends thought I was very cringy for it. But I didn't care. I was a directioner. I was a Harry girl, if you're wondering. I called it, by the way. He's the most famous, so just saying. But I was so, God, she's a directioner. Like, that was like the last reference I expected from a teen movie in the 2020s, like One Direction, okay. And Graham thinks it's like cute, and she's like so embarrassed. I relate. This was really where I was wondering if it was set in 2013. So she goes to the fundraiser. I feel like she's not so eat the rich there. Graham says all eyes are on him because he's the senator's son and whatever. This is the point where Graham opens up that typical popular boy, like his dad is never proud of him. He didn't even want him to attempt to get into Harvard. His dad wants him to go to UT. Who would ever want to go to UT? He calls it a public Ivy in a condescending tone. Calls it respectable but attainable. Excuse me, sir. That is kind of true. UT was catching strays in this teen movie for no reason. Why did it have to be like the college I went to, literally? So he gets vulnerable about going to UT, what a punishment, and they're dancing and they start making out at this fundraiser in front of all the rich people. I thought it was a little much, like, aren't all eyes on you as a senator's son and you're here making out with a girl? But whatever, it's supposed to be a romantic moment. I'm being bad, not suspending my disbelief. But they kiss and they're officially kind of falling in love. I find it interesting how like girls like this, like Mandy, that are anti-popularity and hate the popular kids, these girls are always shocked that the guy is charming and charismatic. It's like the same thing in John Tucker Must Die. Brittany Snow's character is like shocked she falls in love with John Tucker. This man is popular for a reason. Like, he charmed the whole school. You don't think he can charm you? He does. He always does. So Graham charms her, John Tucker charms Brittany Snow, and after this, Mandy runs into the senator and finally talks to him one-on-one. He's just like clearly has a very low opinion of his son. He's like, wow, it's such a hard job to tutor him, isn't it? Haha. And Mandy's like, oh no, I'm in love with him and you're so mean. She doesn't say that. She's thinking it though. The senator ends up offering the letter to her as a thank you, and she rejects it because he's an asshole to his son. And I'm just like, girl, you've been working this whole movie to get the damn letter. Just take the damn letter. Compromised all her beliefs and desires for Harvard, but whatever. Right after that, she overhears Graham's brother say that Graham had a girl over earlier and was hooking up. So she is shocked, like, he played me the whole time. I was shocked. I was like, oh, he's a cheater. Of course, they all are. She calls Ben to pick her up. Ben is in the middle of his birthday dinner. He has to leave LaToya in a very rude way. He treats LaToya like crap, and I hated that. So Ben comes to pick her up, save her, and they reaffirm their pact to go to prom together because everyone else sucks. So the following day at school, Mandy finds out that this has all been a misunderstanding and that Graham had just had a girl over to plan his promposal. So he surprises her with this promposal at school. It was like risky business, and then it went into one direction and what makes you beautiful. And it's laid, to be honest. I was screaming. I was screaming for One Direction. Graham promposes, and the problem is Mandy already has a date. But because this elaborate promposal is so thoughtful, she says yes to him. The big problem happens because at the same time, Ben gets asked by LaToya, who's mad at him for ditching her last night. And she's like, make it up to me and go to prom with me. And he's like, actually, I have a date. When he finds out Mandy said yes to her other promposal, he is pissed. And he starts yelling at her and spilling all the beans, of course. And because we're in the age of social media, yay, everyone is Instagram living the argument where he says, you just romanced Graham to get the letter of recommendation from the senator. And of course, then Graham sees that online and realizes the betrayal and breaks up with her. And it is really fucked up. Like, Ben kept his Prom Pact word and she did not, because he played One Direction. And I mean, I get it. But also, Ben should have said yes to LaToya and just ditched Mandy, since Mandy had already committed a lot of friend crimes on him. It's interesting how social media was pretty well integrated into this, not like at the forefront, but there. It's funny how like so much of the promposals and the arguments and stuff, it's about making content. So this is the big low point, because when Graham breaks up with her, he gives her the letter she wanted the whole time. But now she doesn't have a best friend, she doesn't have a boyfriend, but she has her letter. And now she doesn't even want to mail the letter. I'm just like, girl, you already lost everything. Might as well mail the damn letter and get into Harvard. It's all you got right now. So after this, she starts her apology tour. She gives the letter back to Graham. And then she gets ready for prom and intends to go pick up Ben. She is dressed in the 80s theme, but her prom dress is snatched, corseted, real good. I love this look. It was funny because she came downstairs in her prom dress and her parents are shocked that she's going to prom because she's anti-prom. But who snatched you into that corset up there, huh? If it wasn't your parents. Your fairy godmother, perhaps? It's a bit of a fashion plot hole, but I will forgive it. So she goes to Ben's house and dances outside, makes 80s references, and he eventually forgives her. They end up going to prom together, ending their feud. There they see that no one else is dressed on theme, just them. And their other friends are like, yeah, you would have known that if you showed up to things. The way Mandy makes it up to Ben is that she rigs the king and queen competition and makes him prom king. LaToya is going to be prom queen so that they can have their moment together. He apologizes to LaToya. She forgives him. It's all pretty easy. She shouldn't have forgiven him. Now that Ben is happy with her, he encourages her to check her Harvard application again. And she checks, and she's actually accepted now, mysteriously. She talks to Miss Chen, and Miss Chen says she sent in a letter of rec. And I had thought it implied that, like, secretly maybe Graham sent the letter from the senator since he got the letter back. But that's never confirmed or, like, implied even. I just figured that's where it was going, and then it didn't go there. I don't know. I thought it was going to be that Graham sent the letter anyway. And so, yeah, girl world was at peace. Can I get through one video without quoting Mean Girls? No. We see the class graduate, and Mandy is salutatorian, and she's giving a speech. She's salutatorian because she got a 94 in PE. The way that is me AF. My GPA was lowered due to my PE classes. She catches up with Graham after graduation, and he's like, I'm going to UT. Shady again towards UT. Go Longhorns, woo. But they leave it at that, and Mandy leaves for college. In the very last scene of the movie, we see her in Cambridge. She's at Harvard, and she goes to a bar or cafe or something and sees Graham there. And he says he's taken a gap year to work with the children, teaching them basketball here in Boston. Okay, what privilege. You can just take a gap year in whatever city. And he's like, there's also another reason why I'm here in Boston. And then they kiss. I just feel like the lesson of it all was a little bit about like putting aside political differences. I just feel like once Graham and Mandy have a conversation about politics, like will this relationship totally crumble? I feel like it would. But of course, it's a teen movie, rom-com style. It ends in a fairy tale kind of way. I don't think they mean for me to be thinking about it that hard. I just know as soon as, you know, they talk about their stance on abortion, things might get a little hairy. Maybe I'm just cynical. And the actual big lesson of Prom Pact is that friendship is important. She made the effort to repair her friendship and things with Ben before she figured out her boyfriend stuff. That was the movie. I was just kind of shocked by like the mature content, but I still think it was age appropriate. I never thought I'd see the day where Disney took this type of risk, especially after what happened with like the Lizzie McGuire reboot and stuff, where like they thought characters in their 30s were being too adult, like they are adults. So I really found Prom Pact to be refreshing. I don't feel like I need to be 8 years old to enjoy it. Classic story, but also with its own little twist to it. I love being surprised in movies, and this really had a lot of moments that really got me like paying attention. So that was Prom Pact. Let me know what you thought of this movie in the comments below. I would love to hear about it. Did you grow up with Disney Channel? Are you shook by the new direction? Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos once or twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!